Hello, everybody, and welcome. I am going to be bringing you a little bit of a special episode, a little different format this week for you, as I am joined by Andrew Cawood of Cawood Publishing to discuss his latest Kickstarter, Monsters of the Feywild 2. But before we get into that, a couple of quick announcements. First and foremost, I have a giveaway going on right now for Spectacular Settlements from Nord Games, along with 4 of their decks that they also included for me to give away to one of you when this channel hits 1,000 subscribers. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed. If you are subscribed, make sure you share the channel with your friends so we can reach that goal and do this giveaway. I put a link in the description below to the video for the giveaway where you can follow the instructions there to enter. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you're hitting the like button. That's all part of helping me to grow the channel and of the giveaway. You can also follow me over on Twitter at toolbox_DM. So that's it for our announcements. And without further ado, let's go talk to Andrew from Cawood Publishing. Let's get into it. Hello, everybody. I'm Joe, and this is the DM Toolbox, your go-to place to get all the tools you need to enhance your D&D games. Today, I have a special episode because I am joined by Andrew from Cawood Publishing to talk about his latest Kickstarter, Monsters of the Feywild 2. So, Andrew, welcome. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me on again. Yeah, I'm good.
Awesome. So, we talked a couple weeks ago about another one of your books, and I've done reviews of several of your books, but this is a sequel to one of your monster books, Monsters of the Feywild. So why did you decide, out of all your monster books, we have the Underdark and we've got the Wilderness, we've got the City, why did we decide to do a sequel to Feywild?
Really, the main reason is that when we did the first book, there were a lot of creatures that didn't make the cut. And at that point, we were really making an A to Z monster book, where now what we've made more and more are really campaign books. So Monsters of Feyland 2 will be a full campaign book for Feyland. And we'll be able to give more detail, give maps, details of the courts. And as we've said before, we want to be creative as possible. And the Feyland has no rules. So there we go.
So you, obviously it's still a monster book, right? We have how many monsters in this book?
There'll be 100 with a stretch goal for 20 more.
Okay. But you say it's also a campaign setting. So what elements are we going to bring into this book as opposed to your purely monster books?
Sure. So we'll give you a lot more detail of the actual setting itself, not just the creatures and characters. So there'll be a map. There's a map right now on the main Kickstarter page that Travis Hansen has done of the whole of Feyland. And then there'll be stretch goals of each for regional maps of each of the 7 regions. So we'll organize the book like we did the last 2 with 7 different sections. One of them, actually, I should mention, is a free download right now on the Kickstarter page. We have one of the regions already done. And we'll give you more lore about the courts, the wild Fey, and we'll give you a lot more detail, even specifics about how many Fey are in each army and how the armies are composed of, what they're composed of.
So when you say we're going to do kind of a campaign setting, I see, obviously I have the map up on the screen here to show people. Right, and right now I'm sure this is a rough map. We don't see like text and labels and stuff yet. But are you going to kind of flesh out more of like those who are there, things that are going on, and make this kind of like a sandbox that DMs can then use? Are there going to be some specific adventures going on? How's that going to look?
Yeah, we're going to give a kind of an open-ended tool for DMs. So you could use the main story that's going to be in the book about the Well of Dreams being corrupted by this evil faction of the Unseelie Court. And you could use that in the epic war between the Seelie and Unseelie courts. Or you could have a more fairy tale type story or adventure. And what we'll do is we'll go through the whole, the whole of Feyland, region by region, and we'll show you, there's a lot of it is a forest, and that forest basically borders the ordinary world or the prime material plane in D&D, And in our world of Mir, it borders a continent called Nairn. So there's that forested area with kind of more typical Fey kind of creatures. The center of Feyland is this huge tree, which is the headquarters of the Good Sealy Court, which sort of is like that big tree in Avatar,
Right.
with this massive complex that's part of the tree. Then we also have the Elder Tree, which is on the cover of the first Feyland book.
Okay.
And he's actually on the map there. If you just look off to the center, to the left, there's the Elder Tree right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's how big it is and what a big
Yeah.
part it is. Then there's going to be a kind of a large settlement area, which is a little bit like a border town, or also like Mos Eisley in Star Wars, where it's going to be a place where there's good Fae, evil Fae, wild Fae, and all these creatures are kind of going in and out. It's sort of a river port settlement. Then there's going to be a huge fungi swamp forest kind of area.
Okay.
Then we have the mountains, which is the area that already is being finished for the downloadable booklet, with floating islands. Then you've got the dark lands, which are sort of canyons, and that's this kind of more Shadowfell area where the Unseelie Court is headquartered. And then finally, you've got the tower, which is in a labyrinth in an icy region, and that's where the Well of Dreams is going to be.
Okay.
And as we promote this book, we'll tell you over the next couple of weeks about a hero basically traveling through these different regions and getting to the Well of Dreams. And as you said, DMs can use that story, or they can have a more sandbox campaign.
That all sounds awesome. That's a lot of detail and thought put into it. I really like that. Now, a couple things that caught my attention is you had mentioned floating islands. And one of the cool things there, I think, is that you actually have a creature, a floating island creature. I'm going to pull that up. So we actually have a creature called the floating island. It seems to be like a sentient chunk of land floating in the sky. So what's up with that?
Well, we thought, again, there's no rules in Feyland. Why can't the land be characters? The land can be monsters. So in the mountain region with these floating islands, some of them actually are alive. They're elementals. So you could have a story where these elementals had a settlement on them or a castle, and all of a sudden it comes to life. Or they are actually huge elementals fighting creatures that go through that region, which often creatures would fly through that region, as there's a lot of winged fae and a lot of places that you'd have to be able to fly to reach.
That is so cool. And what I was like kind of picturing is having some kind of battle on top of that thing with like, the players and who, evil fae or whatever, and then the island just kind of getting aggravated and kind of getting it. It looks like it has like tentacles coming down, so I can see like vines coming up and grabbing indiscriminately, right? Just like an extra obstacle. This is a CR17 creature too, so that's some good end game kind of content.
Yeah.
So another one that I caught in here that I really liked, because it was one of my favorite creatures from the old book, right? Was the Hatter last time, and you brought him back as the Corrupted Hatter. So, and I noticed that with one of the other creatures as well. So what's up with these corrupted versions of these creatures we saw in the first book?
Sure. So the Well of Dreams is this power source in Feyland. It's being corrupted by this big bad evil guy that we'll introduce in a few days here as part of the campaign, an evil fae. Okay. And that energy has altered some of the creatures, and we'll bring back some favorites from the first book. And it's changed the Hatter to be even more crazy, even madder, and now evil, chaotic evil instead of chaotic neutral. He's joined the Unseelie Court, and they've basically unleashed him as this like random chaotic weapon into the landscape and on the Seelie Court. And we've altered his abilities and amped up his power. So he's a very, very challenging Arc Fae to deal with now.
Yeah, he feels like he'd make a good like kind of tier 2 boss before you get to that the real people pulling the strings in the court and stuff like that. And I noticed in the art here we have the hair. Is the hair corrupted as well? Did the mad hair get corrupted?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm glad you noticed that, because sometimes what happens is I have a description for Travis Hansen, for the artist, and he always does his thing as well as my details. And sometimes he adds characters, and often those other characters are usually smaller, so we can spotlight the main character. But often I see those and say, you know what, those are going to be characters. So that rabbit and that there's a little caterpillar in there too, which really those are an homage to the original Hatter.
Okay.
We'll have those in the book as well, for sure.
Yeah, I know. I was almost thinking about how like the hair could almost be not corrupted, but his friend is, and you can somehow use him to, like, he wants to help you to save his friend, the Hatter, kind of deal.
Yeah. That's exactly the kind of thing that could happen. Yeah,
That'd be
for
so
sure.
cool.
Yeah.
So what else did we have here? So the other one that other corrupted creature, right, that we had was the corrupted frog witch. So I have the art pulled up for this one, and that more great art by Travis, by the way. I always say it with your books, but Travis's art makes these books so alive. What happened with the frog witch? Because she was in our last book too. She was in the last Feywild book.
Yeah. So she now has she hasn't joined the evil court, the Unseelie court, but much like the King of the Giants in Feyland, she's pretty much decided, forget about the courts. I am going to take Feyland for myself. So she's much more powerful. She's building an underwater city, which will give details. And you can think everything frog about her. She's going to have frog soldiers. She has her henchman, the Toad Man. She's going to have reptiles and frogs in an army. And she wants to do her own thing. We've made her a lot tougher this time as well.
Yeah, she looks great too. I like that too. It's like just yet another faction, kind of independent faction to throw into the loop, and can kind of, play with the player, mess with the players a little. Like, they might have to kind of pick a side.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have some corrupted characters. I'm sure there's probably some others that we're going to see that are kind of changed from the first book, right? Mm-hmm. How do you see this book working with the original book? Do you see it as a sequel, or do you see it as an addition? Because these characters have changed from the first book, so it's like a story is advancing. Do we run do we run a campaign with the first book, then run a second campaign with the new book? Do we, do we mix and match? How do you see that working together?
Yeah, that's really up to the DM. You can really work with them back and forth. The difference is this book will be a campaign book, more like our last two, the Wilderness and the City book, where you can plan an entire campaign. You can plan adventures using this book. And then the first Feyland book, those creatures will be included in the encounter tables in this new book. So they can work very well together. The difference is the first book was much more an A to Z monster book, A to Z in the US. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there was some lore. This book will be packed with lore and will be much more detailed.
Cool. So what other things, obviously we talked about the map and we talked about some more. What other things are you putting in this book to make it, more unique than just another A to Z monster book? What other elements can we expect?
Sure. So not only will there be the Seelie and Unseelie court, there will be wild fae, but there'll be a number of characters, very unique characters that could either aid the heroes or be opponents, especially in that sort of Mos Eisley border town environment. There's going to be bounty hunters. Ooh. There's going to be a lot of characters that would be great NPCs. And really, most of our monsters really have so much personality. They're basically like an NPC. So we'll add a lot. And what we always try to do is remember there's lots of different kinds of tables. So there's people who love combat. There's people who love role play. There's people playing like mystery games. There's more of the fairy tale element. So we want to have a variety of creatures, and we want to have a real variety of the challenge ratings. Although I would say once you get into Feyland, be prepared. So it's not going to be as easy as the prime material plane. It's always you're not gonna have that many low level creatures, but we will have a range. Like there's gonna be a range from, really low up to into the 20s.
Okay. Now, I think when we spoke previously too, you had mentioned something about tables for striking bargains with Fey. What's that about?
Yeah, so our first stretch goal we'd really love to get to is the 20 extra monsters. The next one is adding a whole section about making deals with Fey, making bargains. And so there'll be tables of, the kind of bargain you could make, the kind of thing you might have to give up. Like maybe you'd have to name your first child after this Fey, or you'd have to marry their second cousin. And then there'll be boons that you could get. Like maybe your one of your skills would be improved, or suddenly you can speak Sylvan, and then also maybe sort of curses or other issues that could come up if you didn't read the fine print in these details.
Yep.
Yeah.
I feel like we really have to do a whole devils versus Fey thing at some point with this. Like, where there's the devils and the Fey both competing for the character's souls or for their attentions, and you have to kind of pick a side. That'd be a lot of fun to do with it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that's a stretch goal. I was just showing the stretch goals, which is, you mentioned earlier, the 20 extra monsters. We talked about the main map. There's a stretch goal here for regional maps of the Feyland. So more specific, zoomed in maps of some of these areas, which will be super, super useful. The bargains table, and then some new subclasses and an adventure PDF, which I think would be awesome. I'd love to see the adventure PDF, though I do need to mention on the subclasses, your ranger subclass you did, was it in the wilderness book, was fantastic. So I can't wait to see what you do with subclasses in here.
Oh, thanks.
So since we're talking about stretch goals, let's talk about rewards real quick. Let's just kind of show everybody what's going on with this Kickstarter. So I have the page pulled up here.
Sure.
We are 20 days in. We are getting pretty darn close to about $10,000 away from the goal. So no real worries about hitting that at this point. I think you're well on your way to doing that. But let's talk about our reward level. So obviously, like any good Kickstarter, we have that $1 reward, or that entry level reward, where you can throw $1 at it, and if you don't have the money now, but you want to make sure you get it, and you can add on during backer kit. So we have that there. Or if you just want to contribute a few bucks to help out, that's always a good way to do it. Then we get into our next level, which is going to be our PDF level, right? So that's going to give you a PDF of Monsters of the Feyland 2, but you're also throwing in Monsters of the Feyland, all for $20 Canadian, 16 US. That's really cheap, man.
Yeah.
That's a smoking deal. And then as we go up here, right, what do we have next? We have a softcover version and a PDF version of Monsters of Feyland 2 for $28 US. Then our next one is a hardcover version of the PDF and the PDF for Feyland 2. So those are all kind of your basic ones. Now we get up into the really good bargains, right? Mm-hmm. So your next one here, you're doing all of your monster PDFs. It's 5 PDFs, right?
Yeah.
For $36.
Yeah.
What is that? That's a good deal, guys. So if you haven't checked out some of their other books, I'll put links to my other videos that I've done to review these. If you don't have these yet, that's your great way to get in at a good entry level. And if you're looking for physical copies, I think you got them covered here, right?
Yeah.
So what's our
and if you want to, there's the next level,
the satire, the limited edition.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's been challenges over the last few years with sourcing paper and ink and different issues with printing. So this gives you a limited edition of the best quality ink and paper you can get. And we also add in all the PDFs from the series as well. And then you've got a whole bunch of tiers where you can add extra hardcovers from the series. So you can add the new Monsters of Feyland 2 hardcover, and then each tier you can add another one of the series up to having all 5 books.
Very, very cool. So if we wanted all 5 books and PDFs, we're looking at just under $200 US to do that, which is, again, 5 books for $200. That's really not that bad. That's physical copy and PDF copies for, a little under $40 a book.
Yeah.
So smoking deal. Now, the last tier you have here, this $400 or 400 Canadian, 312 US is kind of your top tier here. What are our extras we get here? Because I know you mentioned a few really cool things. I see besides the monster books. So we're getting all 5 monster books, all 5 PDFs. What else are you including?
Yeah, and then we add in a few handbooks that we've published, best-selling handbooks from Drive-Thru-RPG. And then we've got our custom-made dice. We've got custom stickers. We've got a custom character page by Travis Hansen. So you'll get your character made up like an NPC, just like we make up the monster pages with all the layout and the art. And then also a game with myself, a custom game online. So it's a big package. There's a lot there.
That's awesome. So you're gonna run games for people who back at this level.
Yeah. And we did that last Kickstarter, and we're still organizing those games. It's as you know, playing regularly.
Yeah.
Organizing a time for a game can be the biggest challenge of playing D&D.
That is the hardest thing to do in D&D.
Yeah.
Get a time where everybody can play.
Yeah.
And that, I like the idea of Travis doing custom art for a player. Like, how cool would it be to get your character drawn up by Travis and like have that artwork like that? That would be so cool. I want to do that for all of my players now.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, let's see here. So we have the maps, we've got our characters, we've got our all of our books. So I'm going to put links to the Kickstarter page. I'll put links to your website so people can, order other books if they're interested. But yeah, this looks awesome, man. I'm really excited to see this come to life. Well, with that said, I think we're kind of running low on time. Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you, your site, your material, anything like that?
Sure, yeah. So we're at worldofmirror, MYRR.com. That's our main website where you can find us. We're also on all the socials. And as Joe said, the links will be down there below. We've been kickstarting Feyland 2 for about a week. So we have 3 weeks left and over 60% funded. So I encourage everyone to go take a look.
Yeah, for sure, guys. Definitely check this out. Check out the other videos. Just from the samples you saw today, every single one of those creatures has art of that quality. This isn't like, Andrew didn't just show us the choice pieces today. That was just, he could have closed his eyes and thrown a dart and had art like that in any monster in this book. So they really go all out on these. This is some really, really good quality stuff. So definitely check them out. Andrew, thank you again for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. Good luck with the Kickstarter. Looking forward to seeing the book in person and doing more with you in the future.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, guys. Until next time, roll those dice.